What's going on YouTube? Guy in the back seat, Doomviller Games. Sorry for the terrible quality. Recently I lost my internet, which is part of the reason why there hasn't been any videos in a while. Because I don't like uploading at the library or McDonald's or anywhere like that. So this isn't Yu-Gi-Oh! So before you press the dislike button, this also isn't my first game that I showed you. This is my secondary project. I've been working on this for about, heavily for about 2 months now. Not very long, but I have had this idea in my head for a very long time. This is a game that I'm calling at the moment Lost Ocean. It is basically a much faster game than my game, and it takes a little bit of explaining, but once you get it, it's easy. I've already shown one of my buddies how to play, and that's Joel. Obviously, Joel's like my guinea pig for everything that I do, but I'm going to go over a little bit of the rules, and pretty much if you have played this game in the past, because this is modeled off of a video game for the GameCube. It's Baten Kaitos or Baten Kaitos or whatever you call it, Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean. I really liked that game, but I always viewed it like it could have been a competitive or tabletop style game. So I set out to make my goal make it tabletop capable. So I'm showing off the cards here, but we're going to show more now. So the first bit is I'm going to put these away, and we'll move on from there. Okay, these are also all proxied over Yu-Gi-Oh cards, so if you see a trim of that classic border on this terrible quality, then you'll know. To start, wow, that's bad. Alright, to start, we have character cards. These are basically the person that you select at the beginning of the game, and they're going to act as you, and the characters have their limitations and their advantages. At the moment, I only have 2 character cards printed, because these are all proxies. You have Callus, the main character from Eternal Wings and the Lost Ocean, and you have Giacomo, the primary bad guy, basically, the guy who he's after through the whole story. There's a lot of story behind it, but I'm not even going to bother. Characters are about as, diverse as the game gets, because they basically register the types of cards that you're able to use throughout the story. Now these two, or throughout the game, these two actually have identical things. If you hear the plastic bags, my wife, she's just trying to grab the milk. It's cool. Grab it, sweetie. Love you too. Anyway, yeah. So pretty much they both say, I know it's probably impossible to read, but this says Callus. It says his HP is 20. And he can use swords, shields, armor, and helm. And this is Giacomo, and his HP is 30, and he can use swords, shields, helms, and armor, just like Callus. So they're actually identical characters, but they play differently. While Callus has all 6 elements, as you can see, he can utilize all 6, which is fire, water, that's blue. I don't know how easily that is to tell. It's like a dark blue. Chrono, which is green, wind, which is the light blue, black, which is dark, and light, which is the white, while Giacomo can only use fire and dark. So his cards are going to be limited. That's why he has the more HP, and his cards are diverse, but also because of his limitations, that means that he has weakness and resistance, meaning like if fire is used against him, you cut it in half and then round down if you have to. Same with dark. But if water or light is used against him, you double it. But he can only play the cards that block it. So we figured that out in test. They both have their own effects, which we're not going to go over because it's not important at the moment. But that's where your character diversity comes. They basically get it all from the characters themselves. You only play one. You don't need more than another and anything like that. So next are the elemented cards. You have neutral. You have fire, obviously. Water, which is the blue cards, which really turns out really dark on this camera, sorry. Chrono, which is green. Wind, which is the, or air, which is the light blue. Dark, which is black. again, glares and all types of nonsense, and light, which is the white. Each of them, basically this system is offset. So if light and dark are played against each other, they'll offset. If wind and chrono are played against each other, they'll offset. And if water and fire are played against each other, they'll offset. So fire blocks water, water blocks fire, wind blocks chrono, chrono blocks wind, and dark blocks light, light blocks dark. So if you as a player play both of these in the same turn, their effects for element will actually nullify. So like this says 1 and 1, 1 for each getting the element bonus. These two will subtract from each other. I know that seems annoying, but it just makes you encouraged to build, to watch your plays. Now, you also have neutral. Neutral is basically just, it doesn't have any elemental effect. The way that the cards are read, there's two sides. You have the left side and the right side. And the left side is your offensive, and the right side is your defensive. So as you can see on this, this is it's a bad example. It's too dark. This is a light card, and it has offense and defense. So because of that, you have down here is the combo number, which basically means how many cards in the link have to be played to use it. So this says 1 here and says 2 here, which means if you want to use it offensively, you can use it as the first card or any time. And 2 means that you have to be the second or later card to use it at all defensively. If you're playing offensively, this is 1 for neutral damage and 1 for the light damage, which is why it's clear. And you can see through it. And this block's also 1, it gives you 1 light block and 1 neutral block if you play it defensively. So if they play dark and you play this, for instance, say they played this card, which says 1/1 black, and this says 1/1 white, these would technically stop each other from working at all. That's how that works. Seems a little complicated, but that's why shields exist in defensive cards. That says 1 for blocker, not 2, and it only offers defense but no offensive capability. So, in theory is, every time you play a card in this game, you get to draw a card. So if you draw 1 card, or if you play a card, you draw a card, and if you don't play a card, you don't get to draw a card. So your drawing depends on what you're willing to either give up or what you're willing to play. So if you play defensive cards, then if they're attacking you, that's good, because if you keep drawing defensive, you can just keep blocking them. If you play offensive, then you can keep attacking if you continue to draw offensive cards. The only issues that can happen is if you start drawing into shields while you're attacking and you don't have anything else to attack with. Again, remember that offset rule. If you play both these in your same turn, your opponent doesn't even have to defend against the damage because they're going to block each other, and then you're stuck with just neutral. The most diversifying effect in the game is the numbers that you're seeing in the corners. You see how this says 3 here in the bottom corner, and this says 8 here, but nothing here and nothing here. That's fine. This says 7, and that says 8. And this says 1 only because there's no other numbers anywhere. And this says 3 here and 1 here and 4 there. Each card is played, kind of think about poker hands. So if you get, say, your opening hand, you play something like, you play a 7 like this, and then you play this card and you call 8, because you only get to pick one of the numbers. You don't get to pick them all. So you play these 2 cards in your opening hand, you have a 7, 8 straight, which means that you're able to do 1, 2 extra damage, because for each card in your straight, you get 1 additional point of damage. That's neutral. However, if one of the cards doesn't make a sequence in some way, meaning if it's not part of a pair or not part of a triplicate or not part of like a straight, straights have to be in order, but pairs and stuff don't have to be in order. But the point is like if you play on your turn, like say you play 4 cards and you play a 2, a 3, a 5, and a 7, that doesn't make a straight. You don't get the 3 points for the early straight. You only get the straight if they all match. And secondly, if you play, like say you play 4 cards, and you play 5, 6, 5, 6, then you would get 2 pairs, because it doesn't matter what order they go in as long as they make sense in some way with pairs. But unlike, straights, where you see this, if you played this, where you've called both 8s, right, this would only be giving you 1 extra point of damage, because you only get 1 extra point of damage for each card after the initial one in a pair. So if this was like 3 8s, for instance, let's see if we can find another 8. Bad examples. Well, whatever. You wouldn't play this ideally, but let's say you did this, right? You did 8, and you called 8, and you called 8. Now you have 3 8s. That means you get 2 extra damage. But if you were to play, 8, 8, and then play a 3, which wouldn't make any sense, you don't get any bonus. That's called the spirit number bonus. Spirit numbers existed in the game, and it was basically how you made sure that you won in fights, because it would add a percentage to the total of what you would do. Now, I realize that it seems like a lot to process, but that's basically as in-depth as this game gets. You only play to your strengths. Obviously, a player that plays a card like Callus, where you can play all 6 colors, you'd pick one side of the board and only play that one side, but you don't have a resistance or a weakness at all because you still have those colors available to you. So in that sense, he could effectively play these 3, or he could play these 3 and be fine, or play these 2 only, or these 2 only, or these 2 only, and there's limitless combinations. But in players like Giacomo, you have to play only this and only this, which means that you'll have less chances of offsetting yourself, if you think about it. Because if you play fire and you play water, when you're Callus, those 2 are going to break down their own abilities. They aren't going to be as effective. In terms of anything else, basically the turns are simple. You start the game with both players, and you both draw 3 cards. Now, I know 3 seems like a small amount, but it'll make sense in a second. You both reveal who your character is at the beginning. You don't have to show it before. And you both draw 3 cards. Then you die roll or whatever. You could say less HP goes first or whatever. But if you go first, you basically get to play. The rules are simple. If you play, you can play as many cards in a turn as 1 less than your current hand size. So the current hand size at the start of the game is 3, which means you can play 2 cards. So what I would do if I was playing is all these are one-of combos, meaning like you can drop them on the first turn no matter what. It doesn't matter, whatever. So I'd play 7 as my first card, and then I would draw a card from my deck. So let's say I drew the shield. Then I could play another card. Now notice I have a straight either way, because I have a 6 here and I have an 8 here. So that's good. But if I play the 6, it's going to offset my water card. See? Does that make sense? So I play 8. And then I draw a card. And let's say I drew another shield. Cool. But this would mean on my first turn, I've hit my max, because I have 3 cards. I can only play 2. And I played 7, 8, and dark and water, which means that I'm dealing the 1 damage for neutral, the 1 damage for water, the 1 damage for neutral, the 1 damage for dark, and then 1, 2 extra damage, because 7 and 8 is a straight. Does that make sense? I hope so. I hope it does. Either way, the last bit is that after your opponent takes a turn, because when your opponent goes, you draw 2 as well. So if they attack you, you can drop a shield, and your whole goal is to get straights or pairs or whatever. And this video is running a little long, so I'm about to cut it short. But after both players have taken their turn, 1 turn, you both draw a card. And your hand size goes up by 1, and then play continues. So now you have 4 cards, which means you can play 3. So 4-card hand means 3. Then it continues, and you continue to draw. So after both players take a turn, you go to 5. After both players take a turn after that, you go to 6. After both players' turn, and eventually you get to the actual maximum hand size, which is 7. Once you get to 7, you can play up to 6 cards, which is a lot. But after a turn follows, you can go up to 9, and 9 is the maximum, and that's what I call classing up. In the game, you can class up your character as the game progresses. In this, I wanted it to be a little more rapid paced. So you start with smaller hands, but you get bigger results at the end. The longer that the cards require to be in the chain to use, the actual more numbers they get. For instance, this card is the ultimate move for Callus, which is Lord of the Winds. It is a 6th chain card, which means it has to be 6 or later in the combo to use it. But as you can see, it has 2, 6, 7, and 9 as its numbers, which is awesome. So basically, it's versatile. Smaller cards have lower numbers or only one number, which means that you have to play them smart. That's pretty much the gist of the game. The classing up system is pretty simple. It's just how it goes. That's the game in a nutshell. I know it seems really kind of annoying, but it took me about 15 minutes to describe the whole thing to you. I showed this to Joel. We played about 5 games today. It was fun. It actually went we went 2-2 total. So he won a match, I won a match. And then we changed up the decks. We played one more, and it was a really close game. So I'm hoping to have this, have more videos about this. Hoping to have more cards printed eventually. But as of right now, we're just kind of testing out the kinks, and I wanted to show it early on before we got any further. I know it is a video game, but maybe if this ever becomes popular on YouTube or something nonsense, maybe Monolith and Tri Crescendo will come back with a new Baten Kaitos game, which would be pretty nice. Anyway, I know this video went a little long, especially for something that isn't Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic or anything, popular. So, guy in the back seat, have a nice night.